I wanna hear the one about the big old plum tree. I wanna hear the one about the giggly bumblebee. I wanna hear the one about the juggling jumping flea. That's the story that I wanna hear. That's the story, that's the story, that's the story that I wanna hear. That's the story, that's the story, that's the story that I wanna hear.
G'day, you came back. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Welcome to That's the Story. I'm Ronnie, and this week, well, someone is in for the high jump. Someone called Fiona finds some flying pigs. We have a great pie-making competition. I've got a song about a donkey, believe it or not. But first of all, let's kick it all off with a story.
Nick was at the swimming pool. He loved splashing around in the sparkly blue water and playing games with his friends, like races and diving for coins. Nick was a really good swimmer. Didn't worry him if he couldn't touch the bottom. So Nick loved the water, and he loved being at the pool, and he loved swimming, but he didn't love the high diving board. His big sister Jess had tried to get him to dive off it last time they were at the pool, but he'd frozen at the end of the board when he looked down and saw how far away the water was. It had been so embarrassing when he had to climb back down the ladder with everybody watching. Today, though, Nick was determined to give it a go. He climbed up the ladder to the high diving board. There were 16 rungs. He walked to the end of the board. It was 9 steps. He stood at the end of the board, and it bounced up and down gently under his weight. The bouncing made his tummy even more nervous and jiggly than it was already. Nick looked down into the diving pool. It seemed a long way down. He looked up again at the wall opposite. That made him feel better. Then, before he could get too nervous, he counted to 3. 1, 2, 3, and dove off the high diving board. He headed quickly towards the cool blue water, his arms stretched out above his head, hands together like he'd been taught. He made a neat splash as he hit the water and went down beneath the surface, almost halfway to the bottom. Nick swam back up towards the surface and towards the side of the pool. He'd done it! He'd dived off the high diving board and he felt fine. No, better than that, he felt great!
In a couple of moments, we're going to have a story, but after that story, we're going to play a game called Who Am I? It's where I give you some clues, and you've got to try and guess who it is we're talking about. So get your pen and paper handy, put your thinking cap on. We'll do it straight after the story.
Fiona was the only pig on Mr. Buxton's farm. Although she had a lovely time and got on well with all the rest of the animals, Mr. Buxton couldn't help thinking she'd be happier with other pigs to play with. So one day Fiona said goodbye to all her friends at Mr. Buxton's farm and took a very quick drive in the van over to Aunt Nora's farm to live. Now Aunt Nora had all sorts of animals living on her farm: dogs, chickens, ducks, cats, sheep and pigs. They're in their own very special sty, Aunt Nora called out as Mr. Buxton drove away. I'm sure Fiona will love it in there with them. But when Fiona put one nervous trotter inside the sty, she wasn't so sure. Have a lovely time. I'll call back later at feeding time. Bye, said Aunt Nora as she swung the gate shut. Thought Fiona. Where are all these friendly new pigs? Then from the shadows at the back of the sty she heard a grunt and a snort and a snuffle. Who are you, pig? Grunted one voice. Fiona, stammered Fiona. Fiona, cackled the voice. Silly name for a pig. Fiona frowned. It's only one Fiona, she said sternly. Yeah, I can see there's only one of you, Fiona, said the voice. Where you from? Mr. Buxton's farm. He thought it would be nicer for me to be here with other pigs, and so he brought me over. Oh dear, said a second voice from the gloom. He just dropped you over. Doesn't he know that we are special pigs, and we don't just let any old piece of pork in our sty? Fiona was starting to think she'd have been better off at Mr. Buxton's farm. At least the animals had all been friendly, even if they weren't pigs. Sorry, she murmured. We'll have to think about this, continued the second voice. Come closer so we can check you out, said the first. And as Fiona trotted timidly forward, she was better able to make out 3 shapes at the back of the sty. I, said the biggest shape, am Trotter, pig in charge of the sty. I, said the slightly smaller shape, am Grunter, assistant pig in charge. And I, said the third shape, in a voice Fiona hadn't heard yet, am Squealer, the littlest pig, and the one who does all the work. Until you arrive, that is. Settle, Squealer, boomed Trotter. We don't know if this one's staying yet. Hoi, piped up Fiona. You full of yourself pigs. What makes you so high and mighty and special? Huh, said Grunter. We are the only pigs in the world that can fly. Fly? Said Fiona. Don't be ridiculous. Pigs can't fly. Most pigs can't. We can, smirked Trotter. We don't do it all the time, just when we feel like it, said Grunter. In fact, we've only done it once, said Squealer. Once is enough, said Trotter quickly. It's 100% more times than Fiona has, I'm sure. Fiona growled softly to herself. Stupid pigs. Enough, you blowhards. I don't want to stay in your stupid sty. I'll stay tonight, then call Mr. Buxton to get me in the morning, and you can keep your silly sty. And with that, Fiona burrowed into the hay, turned her back on the others, and pretended to go to sleep. Knew she wasn't our sort, said Trotter, and the three flying pigs stuck their snouts in the air and waddled off to the far end of the sty. Fiona stayed in the hay when Aunt Nora brought back the evening feed, and when the sun went down and moon came out, and when the other three pigs all drifted off to sleep. So she was the only one awake much later, when a strange smell drifted through the sty. That's strange. It's almost like smoke, grunted Fiona. A moment later she cried, It is smoke! Fire! Fire! Wake up, everybody! There was a fire in the old straw, and in a second Trotter, Grunter and Squealer were rushing about, half awake and completely in a panic. A fire! Squealed Squealer. Save us, somebody! Shouted Trotter and Grunter. Calm down, said Fiona, trying to settle the frantic pigs. But they ran straight over the top of her and tried to push the sty gate open. It won't open, cried Trotter. We're doomed, shrieked Grunter. Silly pigs, it opens in, not out. Stop pushing and just pull it open, said Fiona. Oh, said Trotter as the gate opened easily. Thank you. So the smoke-smelling, frenzied and frantic pigs tumbled out into the yard to plonk in the dirt and look back at the sty. Aunt Nora, dressing gown flapping around her, came racing up. Oh, you poor pigs, look at the state of you, and look at your home. If we don't do something, it'll burn to the ground, and then where will you live? Aunt Nora ran off to find the garden hose, only to stop suddenly. Oh, bosh! I lent it to Mr. Buxton only yesterday. By the time I run over and get it, the sty'll be burnt down. No, said Fiona, shoving past the other frazzled pigs. If these pigs can fly like they say, we can, said the three. Then I know how to save the sty, she continued. But we only fly when we want to, said Trotter. Well, if you don't fly tonight, your sty will burn down. So it was, by the light of the moon, the three intrepid flying pigs took flight again. Each with a large bucket clamped in their mouths. They flew low and fast to the little river and swooped gracefully down, gathering up a full bucket of water at each pass. The buckets were heavy, but the pigs were determined, and they flew back to dump the water right in the middle of the fire in the sty. And they kept on flying back and forth to the river until the fire was out and the sty was saved. Now, although Trotter, Grunter and Squealer were quite unpleasant to Fiona when she arrived at the sty, they soon realised that without her bright ideas, the sty could well have been burnt down, with them inside. Fiona, said Trotter humbly, we all have decided that, although you can't fly yet, you are still a very special pig. And if you still want to, you can stay. And because they had been so nice about it, Fiona did.
So here it is. Who am I? It's where I give you a whole lot of clues. From those clues, you've got to try and guess who it is in history we're talking about. Don't even bother looking at your teacher. I haven't told your teacher who it is we're talking about. Even your teacher has to try and guess. So here come those clues.
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is. Who could it be? Let's wait and see what the clues are to this quiz.
This man was born January 4th, 1643 in Woolsthorpe, England, United Kingdom. He died March 31st, 1727 in London, England, United Kingdom. This man studied for a degree in law. This man's mother wanted him to become a farmer, but he had no interest in farming and failed the exams. In his lifetime, he suffered 2 nervous breakdowns. He became known in the scientific community through his refractive telescope, a big improvement on existing telescopes. It is claimed he discovered the theory of gravity after watching an apple fall in the orchard. Throughout his life, he continued research into a wide range of subjects, including mathematics, optics, astronomy, and alchemy. His book, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, has been called the single most influential book on physics. He was the inventor of the cat flap.
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is.
Did you guess? Did you find out who it was? Maybe you could get the teacher to play it again. Write some notes. Use Google if you have to. Talk amongst yourselves. You'll get it. Now, let's have another story.
In Scotland, it is traditional to make a steak pie to be eaten just after midnight on New Year's Eve. Wee Ronnie's family was from Scotland. They'd emigrated a long time ago, before Wee Ronnie was even born, and they liked to keep up their Scottish heritage. It was very important for Wee Ronnie's family to show the rest of the world where they were from. This New Year was no exception. Wee Ronnie's family was going to make a steak pie. However, just for fun this year, Wee Ronnie's family decided that the steak pie would become a steak pie competition with a prize and a certificate for the winner, and everyone had to make their own pies to enter. Wee Ronnie was very excited. He decided that he'd enter the steak pie competition and that his pie would be the best pie in the whole wide world, and that his pie would beat all the pies of his older sisters. Wee Ronnie had quite a competitive streak. Now Wee Ronnie was rather wee, and so he had to get his mammy to help him make his steak pie. Wee Ronnie didn't really know how to make a pie, so his mammy sat right by his side, telling him exactly what to do and when to do it. First, Wee Ronnie had to make the pie filling. Wee Ronnie's mammy helped him to cut up the steak and to chop up some onions. They put a pot on the stove, turned it on, and then filled it with the chopped onion, steak, and some mince. Wee Ronnie added plenty of salt and pepper too. Wee Ronnie had been watching the chefs on TV. He quite liked to cook, and he was developing a bit of a passion for it. Wee Ronnie suggested that they add some tomatoes and secret herbs and spices. His mammy wasn't sure, but she figured it was Wee Ronnie's pie, and so let him go ahead. The pie filling sat on the stove for a long time. It bubbled and popped and stewed in its own juices. The pie filling smell wafted around the house, and Wee Ronnie was very happy indeed. It smelt good. Wee Ronnie and his mammy turned off the stove and left the pie filling to stew and to cool overnight. It was New Year's Eve, and time to put the pies together. Wee Ronnie had to roll out the pastry. It was a difficult job. His mammy helped him when his arms started to get tired. They buttered 2 pie dishes and laid the pastry out within them. Then Wee Ronnie's mammy helped Wee Ronnie to spoon the pie filling into the lined pastry dishes. The pies were beginning to look just like the real thing. When the pies were full to the brim with chunky pie filling, Wee Ronnie covered them up with another roll of pastry. His mammy showed him how to join the pie tops to the bottoms and how to make a cool pie-like pattern around the outside using a knife. Wee Ronnie had to be very careful though, because knives were very sharp. Once the pies were made, Wee Ronnie and his mammy put them into the preheated oven. They would take about half an hour to cook. Wee Ronnie and his mammy waited. They waited and they waited, as the kitchen slowly filled up with the smell of freshly made pie. The oven alarm indicated that time was up. Wee Ronnie's mammy helped Wee Ronnie to take the pies out of the oven. They looked fantastic. Wee Ronnie was confident that his pies would be the winners. Later that evening, Wee Ronnie's family gathered to celebrate the new year. Bagpipes were played and singing was sung, and then it was time for the steak pie competition. Wee Ronnie waited anxiously as his pie was lined up with the other pies baked by his sisters. Some pies were round and some were square. Some had fancy pastry and some had sesame seed tops. They all looked pretty good. Uncle Tom and Uncle Kerry were the special steak pie judges. They even had special steak pie badges, and they took their job very seriously indeed. It took a long time for the judges to choose the steak pie competition winner. They ate a little bit of each pie, and they hummed and they ha'd. They ate some more, and they discussed and then considered. Wee Ronnie jumped about excitedly, and then the steak pie competition winner was announced. And yes, it was Wee Ronnie! Wee Ronnie and his mammy had won the inaugural steak pie baking competition, and as Wee Ronnie went on up to collect his prize and his certificate, his mammy beamed on proudly.
"That's my boy,"
said Wee Ronnie's mammy, and then the whole family tucked into the rest of the pies. Although Wee Ronnie had won, the other pies were pretty spectacular too, and the Scottish tradition of steak pie eating continued well into the wee hours of New Year's Day.
Alfred Nobel invented dynamite. Kangaroos can't walk backwards. Venus is the only planet that spins clockwise.
I wanna fly like a kite, all day and all through the night. Way up in the sky, I'd like to fly. I wanna fly like a kite. But I'm a donkey, and I'm staying right here on the ground. I wanna swim like a fish. That's my one and only really big wish. I wanna keep cool in my very own pool. I wanna swim like a fish. But I'm a donkey, and I'm staying right here on the ground. I wanna be a monkey in a tree, swinging wild and free, up amongst the leaves in the afternoon breeze. A monkey's life's for me, but I'm a donkey, and I'm staying right here on the ground. Hee-haw.
That's me, I'm done. Diddly done, diddly 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 done. That's my lot for another week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you had a great week. Have a fabulous weekend. If you want to check out more stories, more songs, more cartoons, head for the That's the Story YouTube channel. If you can't find it on YouTube, head for the That's the Story Facebook page. There's a link to it there. Have a great weekend.
That's the story that I wanna hear.